Hello, I'm Kit Swartz, and I'm here to talk today about OCTRI Resources and what they can do for you. I'm also joined by Cindy Morris, Senior Associate Director at OCTRI. So I'd like to start with what is OCTRI. So OCTRI is a CTSA program awardee, meaning we have funding from NCATS, an NIH agency. Approximately 60 other academic medical institutions across the nation also are CTSA entities. And we're created to accelerate discoveries and improve clinical and translational research, both here within our organization and across the region. Just briefly, I'd like to put up the goals from our grant. We have them arranged in this cute oak tree. We're here to develop the translational workforce, enhance partnerships with communities, catalyze translational research, foster and support scientific collaboration, and cultivate innovation in research. And these are really great goals. They're pretty high-level goals. So what I'm here to talk today about is what all of this means to you. We have a couple of different ways that we work to achieve the goals that I had up there previously. And some of those are research support services, and that's what I'm going to be focusing on today. The main message that I'd like you to go away from this talk today, having received, is that we're here to support you at every step in the research process, wherever you may be. So I'm going to start sort of chronologically, or as chronologic as I could make this, and talk about kind of study development initially. And what are some of the things that we can provide to you during that study development phase? And many of these come in the package of a consultation of some sort. So I'll be talking about these in more detail in the next slides. So the first thing I'd like to talk about is the Clinical Research Development Team, which is a meeting, essentially, with people from various parts of OCTRI across different programs who will meet with you and discuss your proposal or your study that you're planning to develop. And this meeting is really kind of a more in the weeds sort of a meeting to talk about operations, the details of your proposal, and how you plan on completing those to really help you actualize your research and think through all of the different things that you'll need to consider when you're ready to implement your study so that it can inform the design of your study. We're here to meet you wherever you're at. So, you know, depending on what your questions are and what your pain points are, we'll tailor the meeting to really suit your purposes. And this can be at proposal development, which is where we're sort of focused right now in the talk, but it can be really at any time throughout the life of your study, implementation or partway through even. And it can be really helpful for you if you have some barriers or some challenges that you've come up against. So I'd also like to talk a little bit about our BIRD program, which is Biostatistics, Epidemiology, and Research Design, BERD. This is a collaborative between OCTRI and the Biostatistics Design Program, which you may have heard of here at OHSU. BIRD really focuses on education, development, and access to expertise through workshops and seminars. And usually the main kind of entryway is through these biostatistics advice sessions that are supported by OCTRI. These are free sessions where you can come and talk to a statistician about what it is that your question is. Maybe it's, you know, do I have the right sample size, or is my analysis plan correct? And they can help kind of either validate what you're already thinking about or steer you in the right direction. If it is that you need a more in-depth service, like an actual calculation or an analysis of some data, they may also connect you to their fee-for-service unit as well, which really is the same staff, but it's not really a part of the BIRD program, which is the OCTRI Collaborative. So other things that need to be considered during study development include recruitment. Clinical research really, it's essential for clinical research. If you cannot recruit the study population that you're looking for, if you cannot find the people to be a part of your study, you won't be able to answer the questions that you're setting out to answer. So to that end, we have some resources that you would potentially be interested in, including a consultation with our specialist. She can sit down with you and talk to you about your specific study, get you connected with the right tools, the right resources around thinking about your recruitment, and kind of tailor a real plan for you around what it is that you need to do in order to recruit successfully. Epic data is another really rich resource, and I'll talk a little bit more on that later, so I'm not going to go into detail here. The clinical research development team that I mentioned previously, oftentimes one of the things that we talk about in that meeting is really about recruitment and making sure that you'll be successful in your recruitment efforts. We also have study coordinators available for hire at an hourly rate. This might be something that you just want to be thinking about in terms of manpower for recruitment, because oftentimes that's what it really is. To successfully recruit, you need to have people out there, boots on the ground, people answering phones, and doing all of that sort of work. And if you don't have a coordinator in your unit, or you're not able to, leverage the coordinators that might be available to you, having this resource is really helpful. It might be something that you need to budget for when you're creating your plan. And then in addition, I'd also like to mention that we have a research volunteer registry here at OCTRI. We have people who have signed up and said that they're interested in being a part of research, and they're available to recruit from. They're mostly healthy volunteers, and in addition to saying that they're interested in research, we also have a biorepository that's comprised of a subset of those people who have donated either blood, urine, or saliva, or all three. And those samples are really helpful for normal controls, or if you're looking to do something like assay development. So that's another resource that might be helpful. So moving on, I wanted to get into a little bit more about the EMR data, the EPIC data that I mentioned previously, and how that can be helpful for you during study development. It can be a really powerful tool for things like feasibility analysis or planning, making sure that you can actually find the patients here at OHSU and where are they, what clinics are they in. And it can be a tool that can really speed up your recruitment and increase your efficiency. At OCTRI, there are a couple of tools that you'll hear mentioned. One is Cohort Discovery, and the other is the Research Data Warehouse. They're linked tools in terms of the data that they're accessing from EPIC, but there are a couple of key differences. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about what those are. For things like feasibility, where you might just be looking for a count of how many patients meet the criteria for your study, you might be able to do that with Cohort Discovery. And Cohort Discovery is a great tool because it's a self-serve type of model. It's an online web-based tool that you can gain access to after you have just a short training session, where you can do a drag and drop type of an activity to create a query that then will return a count to you. So say you're looking to recruit patients of a certain age, maybe, females aged 20 to 25, who have had a pregnancy. You can ascertain how many patients within the OHSU system would meet that criteria. If you're looking for something more in depth, you may need to look to the Research Data Warehouse, which is when you would actually be working with an analyst, and this is a fee for service now. You'd be working with an analyst to create that query on your behalf. And you might use this for something like a proof of concept, or maybe a preliminary data set that you might need. Or if the count that you're trying to create, that initial first step count, is a little bit more complex, you might need to work with an analyst in that case as well. You may not know which of these two tools would work best for you. In either case, OCTRI can help steer you towards the best tool for what it is that you're trying to achieve. So once you get your data, as you're planning your study, you're thinking about recruitment, you're thinking about how you might access the data, you'll need to also be thinking about your data management. Where will you store your data? How is it going to get there? What kind of a tool would be the best tool in order to collect your data, and then also to manage it once you have it? And are there any additional requirements that you need to be aware of? Things like the FDA. If you have an FDA-regulated device or drug, you may need to be thinking about some additional requirements in terms of your data collection and management. So these are really good things to think about. If you do have an FDA-regulated device or drug, OCTRI does offer consultations on this topic through our regulatory knowledge consultations. We have dedicated staff who can help you think about those things and identify what that means in terms of how you need to conduct your study. In addition, our regulatory knowledge experts can also help with data safety monitoring plan. If you're writing your grant and you get to that portion of it and you're needing some help with that, we can consult with you. Or if you just have general questions and need some help with your regulatory aspects of your study, we can help with that as well. Depending on what type of study it is that you're planning, you may also be interested to know that we have evaluation services through our evaluation core. This program can help with things like designing and implementing evaluation plans, thinking about SMART goals, or even collecting and analyzing your data, depending on what kind of a study it is. And in addition, I'm not going to read all of these things here, but I just want to draw attention to a new service that's offered through the core, the creation of dashboards using RStudio. The creation of a dashboard can be really helpful either for an individual study in tracking kind of where you're at with the study and visualizing your data, or programmatically if you have a suite of studies or a program that you'd like to kind of visualize what's going on kind of overall. It can be a really helpful resource in that way as well. If you'd like to learn more about it, I've included the link to the evaluation program here, and you can find out more information and get in touch with them directly through that page. We also have a community program, and it's the Community Outreach Research and Engagement, or CORE, that can help researchers with things like getting feedback from specific populations. So as you're planning your study, it's really important to consider what is the population it is that you're trying to work with, and how could getting feedback from that population really help inform your study. This is a very important thing to consider as you're planning your project. And so if that's something you'd like to learn more about, there's something called a Community Engagement Studio that can be set up through this program. Additionally, if you're thinking about something that's more far-reaching than just the metro area or the OHSU population, this team can help connect you to statewide expertise, or even bring your research out to communities across the state. They have liaisons set up across the entirety of Oregon, and so they have connections, deep connections in some of these communities that may be of benefit to your project. I've included the link to their page here, and they also have a general email, which is the communityresearch@ohsu.edu email. So if this is something you're interested in learning more about, you can feel free to connect with them. So now I'd like to move on to kind of more operational aspects of your study, now that we've talked a little bit about some of the things that might be of relevance as you're designing and developing your project. I would just like to say that all of the things that I mentioned previously, including the development team, the recruitment specialist, all of the different consultations that I've mentioned are also available as you're operationalizing your project. So I won't go into great depth with those again, but just know that everything that I've previously mentioned are really available at any time throughout the life of the project. But specifically, when thinking about EMR data, which I talked about earlier, when you're ready to operationalize your study, this can be very powerful in terms of speeding up your recruitment and making it much more efficient. So it may be that you use Cohort Discovery at the beginning in terms of trying to figure out the feasibility of your project. And then when you're ready to operationalize, you may return to that again and get a list of identifiable information with IRB approval, of course, in order to actually do the recruitment for your study. So this is just something to really think about in terms of how you might implement your recruitment. If you are looking to recruit people here at OHSU, Cohort Discovery or the Research Data Warehouse might be really great ways to identify those potential patients. As I mentioned before, Cohort Discovery is a self-serve tool where you create the query yourself and you return a count. Now, once you do that and you have IRB approval to get an identifiable list, our analysts can provide you with a limited data set, which would include things like their name, medical record number, contact information. You could then use that to actually contact those patients to see if they're interested in your research. And for investigator-initiated studies, this can be done at no cost. If you have a more complex query that you need to create, or you'd like to get a data set that is more than just a limited data set, let's say you want to return something like lab values, you would need to work with the Research Data Warehouse analyst in order to do that. But in terms of cost effectiveness, it may actually speed up your study to the point where it makes a lot of sense to do that. I also have included in this table something I didn't mention before, the EPIC reporting workbench, which actually isn't offered through OCTRI. It's a part of ITG and the EPIC for Research team. But I like to put it here because when you're thinking about identifying your patients and recruiting your patients, sometimes the EPIC reporting workbench makes sense to leverage. It's a tool within EPIC, so it's not a extra application layered on top of EPIC data. It's actually in EPIC itself. And it allows you as the end user to create a query in real time. So you're actually querying the EPIC data as it is at that moment. It needs to be for a very simple query, and it needs to be for a very short period of time. So when you're looking at something like the Research Data Warehouse, you could create a query that spans years and years. In the EPIC reporting workbench, it's recommended that you keep it relatively short time duration that you're querying. So maybe 2 weeks or a month, something like that. Oftentimes people use this for identifying patients who are coming to specific clinics within a certain time period that meet criteria. So you might be looking 2 weeks out or looking 2 weeks backwards to say, how many patients came in with these specific diagnoses so that you can identify them and approach them about the study. If you want to learn more about that, the EPIC research team has a contact email there, epicresearchteam@ohsu.edu. So once you get your patients and you're enrolling them and you're collecting your data, where are you going to put it? We talked a little bit about needing to plan for where you're going to put it. One of the options that we may learn about during that planning phase is something called Redcap. Redcap is an online secure database software that was created by Vanderbilt in 2004. We've been using it here since 2007, and it's really great because it's a self-serve software available to you where you can actually go in and create your own data capture forms, your own surveys, and you can design it specifically for your study. Why would you want to use it? Well, it was designed specifically for clinical research data collection. So this tool has really been made for this specific purpose. It's also constantly getting new features, new development. So it's up to date, and it should meet all of your needs. In addition, it's HIPAA compliant, which is fantastic. Our IRB already knows about it, so it doesn't need a security review. It's something that's well known here on campus, and it's free. So, for most investigator needs, you can go in and actually do it yourself, and you don't need to hire anybody to actually do the work for you. So something to think about as you're considering your data management options. Also, for study operations, you may need to find a space to actually do your research. And here at OCTRI, we have the Clinical and Translational Research Center, or the CTRC. It's in the Hatfield building, and it offers an inpatient and an outpatient space, as well as an infusion area. Here on the unit, we also have a core lab or a research lab that's adjacent to the clinic. And as I mentioned before, we have study coordinators. They're a part of the CTRC, but they don't have to only do work on the CTRC. They can also, come into your clinic or recruit people in other parts of the hospital. Also, as a part of the CTRC, we have a bionutrition unit available to do things like create research meals or do body composition assessments and things like that. Some examples of services that you might be thinking about when you're considering using the CTRC include the things listed here. Infusion services, intensive research nursing. As I mentioned before, we have exam rooms, so maybe you just need a space where you come in and interact with your patients. And we also have a research assistant available for things like phlebotomy, vitals, EKGs, that sort of thing. Now switching gears a little bit, and back kind of to study development really, I just want to mention that the CTSA consortium has something called the Trial Innovation Network, or the TIN, that's available to investigators who are planning or implementing multi-site studies. It's really intended for clinical trials, but can also be used for other types of clinical research depending on the study. I'm not going to go into great depth with this here. I just want to mention it so that you know that it's available and that it's present. If it's something that you want to know more about or you are planning a multi-site study, please get in touch with me and we can talk about whether or not it would make sense for your research. And then this isn't really a service, a support service, so much as a program, but I do want to let you know about the innovation and entrepreneurship education and programs available through OCTRI. Foundational to that is the Biomedical Innovation Program. You may have heard of this already. There are frequent RFAs that go out to the research community with funding opportunities, really. But it's more than just funding. It's project management, it's mentoring, and it's entrepreneur education. There are cycles that the BIP program put out focused on device and diagnostic, drug discovery, and digital health, and occasionally focused on other things depending on what's going on in the world. In addition to the BIP program, there are other opportunities for educational events, such as the Invent Seminar Series. It's a series of seminars that introduce the principles of commercialization and entrepreneurship. And then we also have something called BIP Core, which is a 4-week commercialization course for people who have an early stage project or idea. And it's really meant to help you prepare a business case to secure funding and partnerships. Other resources available include the Market Research Lab, which provides access to data to vet an early stage idea to support your technology for development and commercialization. It gives you an idea of what the landscape is for the type of technology that you're considering. And then just a quick plug for an upcoming event in October, the 23rd to the 25th. There is something called the Inventathon. It's a session to brainstorm and build a prototype for a need in the biomedical space and to pitch a solution. There are awards and you can get up to $40,000 in team prizes depending on your project and what you come up with for your prototype. To learn more about those, there's a link here at the bottom for the Innovation and Entrepreneurship page at OCTRI, and you can contact them through that page or get in touch with me and I can connect you. So very shortly I'm going to be passing it off to Cindy Morris, but just wanted to leave you with this. For services or questions, you can start with the Navigator program here at OCTRI, and we provide comprehensive intake. We also answer questions. If we don't know the answer to the question, we will find the answer or connect you to the right person. You can get in touch with us by calling us at the number listed here on the screen or emailing us at octri@ohsu.edu. If you already know what it is that you need, you can also fill out our research request form. There's a link to that here. It's also on our main page, on the front page. And that'll just lead you through a series of questions about your project and the types of services that you might need. And then we will be in touch after we receive that and get that off to the right people. Okay, so now I'm going to pass it off to Cindy Morris, and I will mute myself. Cindy, do you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah, thank you. I'm Cindy Morris, and I direct the education and career development programs within OCTRI. I use this diagram to suggest that we have both career development and educational resources that span a fairly broad spectrum from undergraduate students through our Build Exito program that works in alliance with Portland State University and a number of universities and colleges around the Pacific Rim, as far out as Guam and American Samoa. This is primarily a diversity training program that has brought over 600 undergraduate students, all interested in science and technology, to training, and with about more than half of those students coming here at OHSU to participate in research. The full spectrum goes clear out to being able to work with independently funded investigators, as you heard about previously with the research design team. We also have 2 embedded training grants. We have a TL1, which is very similar to a T32, and a KL2 within OCTRI that is for individuals at the end of their fellowship or postdoc and at the start of their faculty career in particular. I'll talk more about those 2 programs in a minute. I'd like to focus on the Human Investigations program for a minute. Let's go ahead and switch slides here, new slide. Thank you. So the HIP program at OHSU is a full curriculum that offers anything from up to a full master's in clinical research that is usually taken over at minimum a 2 to 3 year period, clear down to the potential of just taking individual courses that may be of interest as a non-degree student. I should clarify that the HIP program is really intended to develop independent investigators who will be able to write and get grants and then conduct research at OHSU. So it is limited to individuals who either have a doctoral degree already or who are in training, such as in an MD or PhD program to gain that credential. We also offer a certificate in human investigations, which I think of as being like half of a master's degree. So for someone looking for the type of knowledge that can be gained so that you can improve your skills in doing clinical and translational research, this program might be for you. But truly, you can take everything from a class up through a full master's degree. New slide. We have 2 training grants at OHSU. Let's start with the KL2, which is an institutional K award. This program has currently 6 slots that are funded for 2 years each. It's open to early career faculty with a goal of developing independent researchers. It does require a 75% protected time that allows a trainee or a scholar to dedicate that 75% of their overall FTE to developing a research career. This provides some salary support as well as research support These tend to be highly competitive, where we may receive up to 3 or 4 times as many applications as we have positions in the program. A similar program called the TL1, which is just like a T32, is available for students and postdocs, as well as clinicians who are in clinical fellowship programs, or even residency. This has 11 funded slots, and typically individuals are on this training grant for between 1 and 3 years. The goal is to develop translational research skills that will help an individual's research career. As an example, someone who may have done mostly wet lab work wants to now take their program and translate it into a human model. This may be a way to do that. This program similarly provides a stipend just like any other T32 and some tuition support. The one thing that's different about this training grant is that it includes graduate students and postdocs who are at PSU, OSU, U of O, as well as at OHSU, with the intent of developing cross-institutional teams and research programs that can really expand, I think, the horizons of an individual's more narrowly focused research. I put these in here in part just to make sure that you know about these, while you yourself who are listening here may not find themselves a candidate for this. I bet you know someone who would benefit from this, or someone in your department that might benefit well from knowing about this. We don't have openings in this program at all times, but at least twice a year, you'll see a call for these programs on the web or on OHSU Media as we have positions available. Next slide, please. The OCTRI Scholars program exists to support individuals who have already gained a mentored career training grant. So typically, these are early career faculty who have, through NIH, gained a career development award, or through the VA, gained a CDA2, or through NIH, a K award in particular, that is really there to support their own career development. We want to make sure that we operate in alignment to really expand your scholars' opportunities as part of that, through providing education and career development tips, as well as just some networking and connection to the larger community of 75 or so people at OHSU who has one of these awards. We also help you gain access to the network best practices that have been developed to optimize training, different seminars and workshops that are available nationally. We've also helped develop in alignment with individuals in the School of Medicine, a mentor academy and strong programs to improve mentorship on campus. Finally, we have something called the Design Studio that is especially set up for early career researchers. Next slide, please. Design Studio offers an opportunity to present your grant proposal or your best idea to experienced investigators. We offer this at least once a month, and we will bring in an audience of people who are not dissimilar to individuals who may be reviewing your grant nationally. We give you the opportunity to present your aims, your career development plan, your expected methods, and the group will help hone your science, hone your career development plan, as well as provide some grantsmanship tips. we want to increase the number of mentored career development awards on campus through Design Studio. This also exists in case you run into difficulty in a study, or you've gotten a review back on your proposal and you're trying to figure out how to answer the reviews. We will be very pleased to help you through this service. Next slide, please. I don't want to forget this because this is an extremely important part of what we do. Through Bridget Adams, we offer clinical research coordinator training workshops, a study coordinator training series that offers, like we say, workshops and seminars on important topics for clinical research professionals in particular. If you have something that you particularly want to know more about, we also offer a research forum during the noon hour throughout the year. We have topics of interest both to clinical research professionals as well as investigators and many others who are involved with the research process. Take a look at the series that we have developed for the next year, and if there's a topic that you really want to know more about, let us know, and we'll try to arrange a training on that subject. Next slide, please. All right, so that's the end. If you have any questions whatsoever around career development, please do address them to either me or to Karen McCracken at OCTRI, or one of your best options is always to go through the navigator at OCTRI. The address has been on the screen, and yet the navigator can be your best contact for a variety of things. Thank you very much.